All right, everybody, good morning. We are taking another little break from the rookie evaluations because there was an article that got released a couple of days ago on Seahawks.com, and it's an article that I really like going through, and it's an article that I've made videos about the last couple years. So I figured it'd be a good idea to go ahead and do it again this year, and the rookies will wait, right? We've got plenty of time. We don't have that many more to get through. We've got two more draft picks. I'm going to do some UDFAs, but we got plenty of time. We have too much time, if anything. So I want to take today to instead look at this article on Seahawks.com. Basically, what it is, I don't know if he's been doing it for longer than 3 years, but I know he's been doing it for at least 3 years. John Boyle basically has a running diary of what is going on in the Seahawks draft room during the draft. I know it was the Charles Cross draft. He did it, and I remember him doing it last year as well. So it offers potential insight into the Seahawks thought process. Now, to a certain extent, you have to take what he's saying on faith. When he describes a certain situation, when he describes a certain thing being said or thing being done, you don't know for sure if he's just running, interference for the front office, for example. I understand that some people might assume that. They might assume that they're trying to spin everything very positively. Now, generally speaking, I don't think he says anything too outlandish in this article. I've read through it already, obviously. And I want to go through some things that caught my attention, because when you read an article like this, there's going to be certain things that stand out. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this article. It's on Seahawks.com, by the way, if you want to read the whole thing, because I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But I do want to highlight a few things that I noted, certain things that might have given a little bit of information away. And obviously, the giving away information now doesn't matter nearly as much because the draft happened a couple weeks ago. But going through this article, again, he basically puts timestamps on pretty much everything that happens. The first thing that jumps out to me going through this, from right before the draft started, he's got this little paragraph here. There are 19 players with first round grades on Seattle's board, meaning if they stay at 16, they're assured of getting a player they really like. So we had 19 first round grades. There are 32 picks in the first round. So that tells you, just right off the bat, we didn't like this draft that much. So that was interesting to me. We got Schneider saying thank you to everybody involved in the process. You've got the draft actually starting. It jumps to 6:15, which is an hour 15 minutes into the draft. And then you get to this right here, where the Vikings take J.J. McCarthy. And they're fielding a trade offer. It doesn't say from who. A lot of the time they don't say who the trade offer is from specifically, but you know it's from a short list because he's already told us about the teams that requested a trade at 16 with the Seahawks. One thing that gets said here is that the Seahawks still have 10 players with first round grades left. This is after McCarthy goes 10th, which means that one player that went in the top 10 did not have a first round grade from the Seahawks front office. I'd be very interested to know who that was. Maybe it was McCarthy. Maybe it was Penix because of the injury things. It seems like this front office cares a lot about injury stuff. I don't really know who else it could have been. Maybe no. I mean, I don't think you could make an argument that somebody like a Joe Alt wasn't in our first round. I don't think you can make an argument that we didn't have Malik Neighbors in our first round. So I think it's one of those two. I'd be very interested to know who it was that we did not think was worth a first round pick. Also, at this point, according to him, Byron Murphy was one of our highest players remaining. Now, we know that we were high on him, so I kind of buy that. Now, that doesn't necessarily make me believe that he is that good, but we think the team thinks he's that good. And then you have the Jets pick here, and this is where they talk a little bit about the trade offers they had. There was one trade discussed. Again, he doesn't give away which team exactly. It would be a big move back and give them a bunch of stuff for 2025, which That would have been interesting. Getting stuff for 2025 would have been an intriguing move because 2025 is the year where the draft presumably will be better than this one because we only had first round grades on 19 players. So I wonder what that trade was. And Schneider basically says he'll take it if they give up more than they're currently giving up. And obviously, his expectations were not met. So, kind of an interesting thought there to trade for future capital. There's another trade offer a little bit later. A team picking in the 20s is offering some 2025 picks to move up to 16, but no day 2 picks in this year's draft, and Schneider turns it down. Again, I just wonder what some of these trades looked like because we've seen teams give up some serious draft capital a year down the line. And I don't mind the way things ended up going, but we know what it's like to root for a team to lose because we have their picks. It's pretty fun. And sometimes obviously you strike out, but sometimes you hit it big. And we did a couple years ago with the Denver picks. Might have been fun to do it again. But again, I don't think they're unhappy with the way things turned out. Yeah, and then we got the Brock Bowers pick from Vegas at 13. Schneider turns down another trade offer. Let's see here. What else do you got here? He's thinking about taking one of the trade offers that involves 2025 picks. And I thought this was kind of fun. He asks Teasley, one of the other guys in the front office there, for his assessment on that team's prospects for the 2024 season, wanting to know just how valuable next year's picks might be. I think that's kind of an interesting wrinkle to throw in there, and it's something that I talk about. You know, people talk about trading like DK Metcalf to a team like the Chiefs or the Steelers. Those teams are too good. They're not going to pick high enough to really make us happy, especially the Chiefs. If they get Metcalf, they're going to be right up there with the Super Bowl favorites. So I like the fact that he's thinking about things like that. And I think it goes into a layer that a lot of people ignore. Then we get to the Fuaga pick at 14, and it kind of reiterates a recurring trend in this article where the Seahawks clearly wanted to take a defensive player, and they were very happy that offensive players kept going off the board, which doesn't terribly surprise me given the fact that they had just hired a defensive head coach. But is interesting nevertheless. It makes it sound like the draft broke pretty much exactly the way the Seahawks wanted, which some people will take as revisionist history, but I think it's fairly believable at least. I don't think it's anything that's like purposefully disingenuous. When you get down to the pick, you've got this little paragraph here. With the Seahawks preparing to call Murphy, the defensive coaching staff comes into the draft room while McDonald is all smiles knowing his first draft pick in Seattle is going to help his defense. So it does feel like, and I have heard from some sources that we did not have Latu in the first round with our grades because of the injuries. And if that's the case, we had this draft break exactly the way we wanted to as an organization. Again, that's independent of how I feel about the player. That's just how they seem to feel. All right, so there's a bunch of stuff about calling Murphy, talking to him, announcing him as the pick. And then you get down to a day 2. Some more interesting stuff that we were able to get from this article starts with mention of Cooper Beebe. So, according to Boyle, Cooper Beebe was one of the 2 interior linemen still high on Seattle's board when they were in the third round, when they basically got to that early middle third round. 73rd pick overall. So basically, Christian Haynes was their last highly ranked interior lineman with, what was that, like 8 picks left to get to Seattle. So that's kind of the drama here. You get this little blurb from Steve Hutchinson, who was asked about Haynes, and he says, I think he's going to be a really good expletive player. Hutchinson has done fairly well, I would say, as a evaluator for the Seahawks so far. Right before our pick comes up, there was a little bit of a run on offensive linemen. The Bears take the Yale tackle, Megadiji, and he's it's mentioned that at this point, this is like what, 6 picks before ours. Haynes was one of 3 players left on the board that we would have been really happy with. So there was definitely a little bit of drama here. No guarantee you were going to get the right guy. And there's some talk about, well, what are we going to do if Haynes isn't there at number 81? Denver takes Jonah Ellis at 76. Vegas takes Delmar Glaze, an offensive lineman that's not Haynes. So if this article is to be believed, basically, we valued Haynes significantly higher than we valued a guy like Delmar Glaze. And if you scroll down a little bit further here, you'll actually see the Colts trade up to 79 to take Matt Goncalves. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Now, he's a tackle, but I do think he's going to move inside at the NFL. And the indication is that the Seahawks thought Haynes was significantly better than Goncalves. So that's interesting because there was some indication that we really liked Goncalves before the draft, I believe. And for us to, if you buy the article, if you take the article at face value, we apparently didn't like him that much. And then the Seahawks do get Christian Haynes. There's a bunch of stuff in this article about calling him, contacting him, making the pick, announcing the pick, talking with Ryan Grubb about it. And then that basically gets us to day 3, where there was some more interesting stuff to pick up on. Yeah, so it starts early in the morning, obviously. And the first thing that happens is that we trade. It's the Denver trade. We picked up a 5th-round pick to move back in the 4th, basically. And we also moved up from the 7th to the 6th. It's mentioned here that the Seahawks only have a handful of players left on their board with 4th-round grades, so it is a risk. So they decided the risk was worth taking. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that they fielded a trade offer in the early 4th and decided to ultimately decline it. And then it gets down to pick 118, and they're calling up Tyrese Knight. Now, the article never says that Tyrese Knight was one of the players that we had a 4th-round grade on. So if you take a look at the way the initial mention was phrased of only a handful of players left on the board with 4th-round grades at 102, when we move back down to 121, it seems like we probably lost out on the guys that we valued that high. Because if Tyrese Knight was a 4th-round graded player to us, it would have been mentioned in the article. So that leads me to believe that we missed out on the guys that we viewed that highly by trading back. So at the time, I think most people really liked the trade back. In hindsight, I do wonder if people would rather have that one back and maybe go get a Cedric Gray from UNC instead, or something like that, or something that wasn't Tyrese Knight, because I think that's the one pick we made this year that has a lot of people not really feeling too excited. And I do think that this kind of gives away the fact that we feel like we reached for Knight because we thought it was the best option. And it also, I think, gives away the fact that we feel like none of the 4th-round guys fell to us, which is interesting. That means we didn't even have a 4th-round grade on, well, actually, I can't say that for sure, but that indicates we didn't think that much of a guy like a Cedric Gray, and we didn't even have a 4th-round grade on Jeremiah Trotter. So then you've got the Tyrese Knight stuff where we called him, he didn't answer, and then he answered, but the reception was terrible. He was in the middle of nowhere, he had no bars. So a bunch of drama concerning that, but they ultimately did get in contact with him and they did make the pick. And then we had the AJ Barner pick, more discussion of like, not a lot goes into this because the picks were almost back to back, the 2 picks that we had in the 4th. So a bunch of stuff about the conversation they had with Barner. And let's see here. We're coming up on our pick in the 5th. In the 5th round, I think we actually had the first pick in the 5th round from Denver. And Jaden Hicks Kansas City picks Jaden Hicks right in front of us. It's mentioned that Chuck Arnold was not terribly happy about that, and he wanted Hicks. He's a WSU alum, so it makes sense. And when they get to that first pick in the 5th round, they do have a few guys left with 5th round or better grades. And among that player group is a couple of cornerbacks, which they're obviously talking about Pritchett and DJ James. So we take Pritchett first. So the indication seems to me to be that we thought he was worth a 5th round pick and we got him in the 5th round. I thought more highly of him than that, but that's understandable. Most people had him in the 5th, I think. So then we get Pritchett, and he's talking with Carl Scott a little bit, and then it's going to be a little bit of a wait to our next pick. The diary jumps forward actually almost 2 hours, or over, well, actually pretty much exactly 2 hours. And it's mentioned that the Seahawks still have a handful of players with 5th round grades on their board. So they ended up really liking how that 5th round went because a lot of the players they valued did not go. So they get to 179 and they take Lomia, the Utah offensive lineman. They're excited to get him. And the indication is pretty clear that the Seahawks had a 5th round grade on him and they got him in the 6th. And a lot of people had a 5th round grade on him, so I believe it. I guess Lomia almost got recruited by the UW Huskies, but or didn't recruit him out of high school, and now we've got you, according to Scott Huff, who is now our offensive line coach. And then we've got the DJ James pick, and he's another guy that we supposedly had a 5th round grade on. There's a big deal made of how Nico Thorpe, who's currently our defensive, our player engagement / football operations assistant, was a graduate, or he played college football at Auburn, and now we're taking 2 Auburn cornerbacks basically back to back here. So the conversation with DJ James is listed out here. And then we get to the Michael Jarrell pick, and the implication from this segment of the article is that the Seahawks had a 5th round grade on Michael Jarrell, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, when you consider how small a school he went to and what kind of prospect he is going into the 2024 season. He's just going into the NFL. He's just so unprepared to do football NFL level things. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. That shows you that we really liked him, and I can understand on some level that we really like how athletic he is, but to think we had a 5th round grade on Michael Jarrell, it does kind of surprise me. That's about it, but it was a lot, actually. There's a lot of good information in here. All right, so let me know what you guys think about all that. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks.